Yeah, talking about young people. But earlier in the week, I had the chief economist of AFDB on the program, and a fallout of the AGM, which was last week at the launch of the economic outlook for Africa, is that Africa can raise $469 billion without tax hikes. That's what the AFDB believes. So let's delve into that and see the reality of that, at least for a country like Nigeria. We have partner commercial practice at Anderson, Nigeria, Mr. Oladejo Adeyemi. Mr. Adeyemi, good morning. Welcome to the program.
Good morning, Ini. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. So everybody's talking about private capital, Africa's capital generally. And the AFDB believes that we don't necessarily need to increase taxes. What are your thoughts about this perspective? We have about $469 billion that the AFD believes we can access.
Okay, it's quite interesting that that statement and that perspective is coming from the chief economist, because if we were to be from a practitioner, you know, someone would have said, oh, you are just being overly excited, you know, because these are some of the things that some practitioners have said over the years, you know, that there is need for us to, as a continent, you know, harness the opportunities that we have to be able to get to where we are going, you know. So if you look critically at the numbers, I mean, we have the population, you know, the continent has a population of, you know, over 1 billion, you know, and then it's not surprising that that is a reason why it's beginning to become a choice destination for, you know, a lot of investors, you know. So the prospects are there, the numbers in terms of the people, you know, they are there, but there are certain things that need to be put in place, you know, such that the continent will be able to harness such opportunities that has been projected, you know, by the chief economist.
What are those things that should be put in place?
And I think Nigeria is on the path to one of those things. The reform that we just recently concluded, for instance,
reform.
Exactly, would give significant opportunity to be able to tie a lot of things together and bring to the fore certain things that have been left, you know, unattended to over the years. You know, generally speaking, people believe that you can't tax yourself into prosperity, you know, as a country. If any country attempts to do that, it will be like the scenario that Sir Winston Churchill painted, to say you're standing in a bucket and you're trying to lift that bucket, you know. Tax is only a byproduct of activities, economic activities, you know, it's not the engine in itself. So increasing the rates, you know, isn't the way to go, you know, and which is what these reforms that have just been recently concluded, you know, are doing. But the fundamental thing is the issue of trust, you know, the issue of transparency, the issue of efficiency. Yes, reliance on technology based on some of the provisions that this new reform has now brought in would help, you know, and where all of those levers are being turned at the same time, then we can start saying that we can see ourselves being on the path, you know, to achieving these numbers, you know, and even much more as a continent.
So one of the things that AFDB is pushing out is the need for trust, a better contract between the government and the governed as a way to get more people into the tax net. And the need to plug those leakages that seems to be, you know, throwing away the gains of some of these reforms, even in Nigeria. Data shows that the tax net has increased. But if you want to trace that, can you trace it to infrastructure development or even welfare development for the people? Which is why the people sometimes push back when you ask them to pay taxes. So, but how do we do this? It seems a lot of trust has been lost between the people and the government. Where do we start from?
You see, Ini, it's a journey that has to start with rebuilding. Everywhere in the world, tax is a social contract. Citizens pay taxes with the belief and the mindset that the government would take care of certain things. In our case, over the years, that belief had not really lived, you know, up to people's expectations. It's not as though the government is not present, but people need to feel more of government presence, whether it's in terms of insecurity, whether it's in terms of infrastructural development, however you look at it. When that happens, naturally, it just has a way of, and you see, some of these things are painful because as a practitioner, you see the numbers, you see the potentials. It's not in the amount that the big guys pay. It's in the
wideness
way,
of
exactly.
The
it's
number
in the way
of people who are captured.
It can really boom when everyone strives to do their bit, because that is the only time you can then say truly everyone is contributing their fair share. But you see, for every time government drops the ball, or every time you see some form of lag or inefficiency, it kind of reinforces the potential distrust that government is trying to build, and say, you see, this is why I'm not going to pay anything. But if government continues to, so it's like two sides of the same coin, right? You have to keep doing your own path, believing that government is going to do its part, and government has to keep striving to do their part, knowing that they have the populace to convince that you have their best interest at heart, so that voluntary compliance becomes, the order of the day. That's really the only way out, of this situation.
And now in Nigeria, it's election period, so we hear more promises. I believe even President Tinubu, who promised power. I had a conversation earlier this week, and Mr. George Etomi, who was my guest, said, I mean, it's not possible to actually meet up with what he promised in 4 years. So I guess that it's election time now. We will hear a lot of campaign promises, but can they please be realistic? Can they look at the numbers before making those promises? Because these are ways you lose people's trust.
Absolutely.
You make promises, you didn't check the realistic path to that. Or even if there was a realistic path, perhaps the leakages are too much for the people to feel the impact, or for you to be able to fulfill the promise. And politics and governance go hand in hand.
And then, Ini, just to buttress what you said, it is not of necessity. I mean, no human is God. You can say something and it doesn't come to pass. But it's important that you continue to track, continue to communicate, continue to assess, so that people see that genuine effort towards ensuring that you meet up with that which has been said. If I said, Ini, if I come here to say, Ini, I'm going to give you $1 million next week, and I call you 3 days after and say, Ini, the way it's looking, we may not be able to achieve that 1 million, but we will try to do maybe 500. You will have some hope. If I call you a day to that time and I give you that's what really would help rebuilding that trust.
But we don't want politicians to call us and be changing. We don't want politicians to be calling us and changing it. But really,
Absolutely.
I mean, it looks like it's really necessary for that contract to be rebuilt, and for the details of it. But what can the people do, actually?
The best way to believe that something is going to work is to do your part against all odds. And you see, it's odds because people have earned all the rights to say, I'm not going to do my part. But doing that only creates more and more difficulty. It doesn't even put the other guy at the path towards evaluating the possibility of changing. Because when you look at it, you just see a dysfunctional system. You see where nothing works. And under that circumstance, there can be growth. So the best way people can, like you said, we are in election season. People can, of course, determine who they want to vote for and all of that, exercise their civic responsibilities. But beyond that, there must be a commitment on the part of the people to say, you know what, this little space that I am in, that I'm operating in, I'm going to do my part.
But if people ask, do Nigerians actually question the government enough? Or are we too hungry or sentimental, you understand, to actually ask the objective and real questions?
What doesn't get measured doesn't get done. You ask questions when you believe that you have increased level of stake. When you believe you're not putting anything there, you can easily take your eyes off it. Because you're not feeling the brunt in terms of participation. Yes, you are feeling the brunt in terms of inefficiencies that become resultant from some of the things that have not been done by the government. But in terms of the law says I do X, I've done X. When you do that, you engage more. You know, so that it's really a part that people need to start from. Businesses, you know, need to start from. While I then hope and believe that politicians and governments would then have to, because really, these things are not rocket science. They can work. If everyone
They're
really...
working elsewhere.
Exactly. If everyone really does their own part, you know, they would work.
All right, let's make it work as Nigerians, pay our taxes and then ask questions and
Absolutely.
stay on the
Absolutely.
matter. Thank you so much, Mr. Oladejo Adeyemi, partner, commercial practice at Anderson, Nigeria.
Thank you for having me.